Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is an absolute honor to have you here in our video today. Okay, so if you found this video, then that means you've learned a completely new way to manifest. You're now understanding, and I'm going to explain all of this. You're understanding how to manifest from the middle pillar. And this is something very different than what a lot of people work with and what a lot of people do. But the way that you manifest now is completely different than what you've been doing. And the reason why you're at this point is because you've been doing the real inner work. You've been processing emotions. You've been healing trauma. You've been showing up as your authentic self, and you've made that a practice on a daily basis. You've been working on your foundation, changing habits, shifting routines, having boundaries where you need to have boundaries. You've been doing this. And that's why the way that you manifest now and the way that your relationship is to manifestation has completely changed. And now you're operating from the middle pillar. And what do I mean by the middle pillar? We have 3 pillars: positive, center, negative. You're in the center, the middle pillar, between the poles. Harmonized, synchronized, unified. So let's go ahead and let's explain what this actually looks like, since you're somebody who's clearly honoring your process in this type of way. Okay. So what you're starting to understand when it comes to manifesting is that you're understanding that it's not about pushing things. It's not about forcing things. It's not about managing things or controlling things. You're starting to really lock it in to your awareness that manifestation is a natural part of the human being's, the human being's natural state, which means you're always manifesting right now in this moment. You may not necessarily be manifesting the life you want to experience, but that doesn't negate the fact that you're currently manifesting what you're experiencing. So as I'm saying, you're realizing you're always manifesting, but now the shift is by unifying opposites, by harmonizing opposites. So what this means is that you're starting to recognize there is no true separation between positive and negative. So when you're going through a really quote unquote negative experience, a really negative circumstance, a significant negative situation, you're realizing in that exact same negative energy, it is also directly connected to the positive, because they're 2 opposite polarities, which means you literally cannot have one without the other. And the reason why this is important to really understand and to sit with and integrate is because when you understand that every negative is inherently connected to its opposite, that means there's room to naturally synchronize and to process from one state into another. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't understand, and I can understand why. It's just because it's not really general education in our today's time. But all things ever so slightly are always kind of moving towards the positive. And the reason why that happens is because we're all connected to what we could refer to as source consciousness or God consciousness. And that source energy that interconnects all things wants to support development and awareness of self to be able to see that source energy within self and then to better embody it. And that's positive in its nature. So no matter whatever it is that you experience in your life, no matter what it is that you go through, there is always the seed of positive energy and development as well as evolution. So when you approach life from a place of unifying opposites, this means you're no longer resisting what is uncomfortable, because you recognize whenever you're experiencing a negative situation, a negative circumstance, a negative relationship, a negative belief, a negative coping mechanism, whatever it is, you understand already that in that exact negative energy, there is also an interconnected pole of positive. And if you want to naturally move more to the positive, rather than staying stuck in that negative, you recognize that you can experience that negative thing from a place of acceptance, understanding, and presence. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to not attach to it, and it also allows you to not resist it, but it allows it to move through your body and do what it naturally needs to do, and then it releases from your system. And as that negative charge releases from your system, when you're approaching it from non-attachment, non-resistance, and acceptance, you start naturally harmonizing to the positive, because the positive was in that negative experience. And the only reason you're not able to see the positive is because you are making a choice to resist it, to fight it, to suppress it, and not just let it be what it is. So when we unify between opposites, between positive and negative, we do this naturally. It's literally a part of our authentic self to do this. When you're experiencing life in the present moment, you are always unifying energy. It's only when we're significantly fragmented away from our authentic self, and then inherently not wanting to feel things, trying to repress things or escape things, we attach to unhealthy beliefs. We attach to unhealthy coping mechanisms. We attach to unhealthy relationships, not because we're stupid, not because we want to suffer, simply because it's familiar to us. It's become an addiction. It's become something that we believe we have to stay attached to, because if we don't, then something worse might happen, something bad can happen. But as I'm saying, because of all these layers of attachment and fragmentation away from the present moment, that prevents us from naturally harmonizing between positive and negative. This is what literally keeps us in negative realities and negative states of being internally, because the energy is not able to naturally synchronize and harmonize in the way that it actually wants to. It's basically like we're getting in our own way. And there's, once again, I want to be very clear, there's a lot of compassion for ourselves here. We don't need to judge ourselves or shame ourselves or, overly criticize ourselves. We can have compassion for the fact that we choose to stay in negative experiences, but we also want to have that education so that we can eventually change it. We don't want to stay there forever. Okay? But this is how your manifestation has significantly changed. You're now realizing through the unification of opposites and the connectedness between opposites, you can have more presence. You can have more acceptance for what is, especially the negative energy. That's usually the energy that most of us want to resist, what most of us want to fight against. as if it's not also a part of who we are. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have positive and negative energy inside of our bodies. We all have masculine and feminine. It's a part of what it means to be a living soul that has a human body on planet Earth. So it would make a lot of sense that if we spend most of our time fighting ourself or fighting one of the polarities or one of the charges within ourself just because it's uncomfortable, it would make sense that that would create a miserable life. Because how can you live a life of fulfillment when you're not in acceptance for all of who you are? You're fighting yourself. You're attacking yourself. You're resisting your own wholeness. So when you start to really let it sink that every negative on the other pole is also a positive, and even vice versa, every positive on the other pole is also a negative, it creates much more room for us to just be an observer and not attach to where we are now. Because if where we are now is a lot more negative experience in nature, so many of us attach to that identity. Oh, everything's always like this. It's always going to happen this way. My life sucks. It's not fair. Poor me, something's happening. This stuff is happening to me because it's their fault. It's that person's fault. It's my parents' fault. And that's attachment. Whereas when we approach it from observation and say, you know what, I'm experiencing negative energy. I'm experiencing a negative experience here, and this is very uncomfortable. But I'm also aware that in this very uncomfortable negative energy, there's also a positive in this. And if I want to lean more towards that positive, then what that means is I have to be the observer with non-attachment of this negative energy that I'm currently feeling in the moment. And then as I'm becoming the observer of it, I need to support myself in accepting being in the present moment, which means I need to be present with that uncomfortable energy. I need to actually feel it. I need to connect to my emotion and the sensations in my body. And as I'm doing this with non-attachment, I'm knowing and I'm trusting that it's going to naturally, slowly but surely edge me more to the positive that was within that negative. Because I trust that the natural state of my nervous system and of my soul and my spirit is always trying to move me that much closer to source consciousness, to God consciousness, to harmony within. So that's the key. You can see how much of a difference this is compared to separating the two poles and trying to force one over the other. If we separate positive and negative, and we start to identify ourselves as, resisting one and chasing the other, then all that means is that we're creating more fragmentation in our psyche. We're creating more separation and more duality in the world around us, because everything that represents that negative energy that I don't identify with becomes an enemy. And everything that represents the positive energy that I do identify with, that becomes the good guy. That becomes the good energy. So then we have this concept of good energy and bad energy. This is negative. It makes me feel uncomfortable, so therefore it's bad, and that's the enemy, and that's not at all who I am. There's no part of me that is that bad energy. There's no part of me that really wants that, and that's not what I want to experience. But on the other hand, all of this positive energy, financial freedom, success, happiness, excitement, joy, love. These are the things that I identify with. This is what I am. This is what I want more of. This is what I'm creating. Meanwhile, what really happens when it comes to energetic movement is we persist what we resist. We literally become what we resist. So when someone identifies with positive as the good and then represses and suppresses negative as the bad, they become the negative energy because that's what they're resisting. And what they're resisting is exactly what they're persisting. So that's what the dualistic identity does. That's what a dualistic filter of reality does to self. It's not whole. Wholeness says, I am responsible for everything that I'm co-creating and attracting, whether that means it's positive or negative. I am also a part of whatever I'm attracting, whether that's positive or negative, to some degree. I have negative energy in me, and I have positive energy in me, and I don't view either as good or bad. I view them as two natural energetic charges that are important, that are a part of my being, and that I can learn to appreciate. So therefore, when I start creating more of a negative experience or I start attracting more negative experiences, I pause and I say, what part of me, potentially what part of me unconsciously, is creating this experience? How am I playing a role in what it is that I am co-creating and manifesting with this negative experience? And once I recognize that there's a part of me that is creating this, whether I'm conscious of that creation or unconscious of it, I then say, well, that's okay. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to resist it. I'm not going to try to control it or try to manage it, but rather I'm going to recognize that in this very negative situation, this is also directly connected to its complete opposite charge. So whatever is on the complete opposite of that negative, there is a positive that probably feels a lot better and is something that I know that I'm capable of attracting, something that I'm capable of creating, but I have to observe the negative where it's at. And I have to understand it from a lens of non-duality and non-attachment. And as I just appreciate it for what it is, and I allow myself to be present with it, I allow myself to feel through it, let it naturally move through my system and move through my body in the way that it needs to do. Then I start noticing how ever so slightly that negative energy starts harmonizing and synchronizing with the positive. The reason why I see this happening and the reason why I know this takes place is because when you do it, it happens. It's natural. It's one of these things that when you practice, when you make this a daily practice of approaching it in this way, you will see it happen naturally every single time. There's not one of you out there listening to this now that will not be able to do exactly what I'm talking about. Now, it's going to require commitment. You're going to have to commit to it. Like, it's going to be you that's making the choice to go through the process. But if you go through the process, you will see negative energy harmonize with positive. And then it will slowly build a momentum that moves you more and more towards the positive because there's more nervous system regulation, more inner harmony, inner synchronization. And then that starts to, it starts to surround your energetic field and it becomes a part of your unconscious. And if we want to go even deeper with this, it also creates entities in your field. So when we look at the subtle energy body that surrounds the body, not only does it expand, the more embodied you become and the more regulated your system gets, not only does it expand wider, but you actually create what we could refer to as angelic consciousness in your field, which are literal conscious entities that are positively oriented, that support creating more positive experiences, kind of like a self-fulfilling feedback loop. And this self-fulfilling feedback loop can happen with both polarities. We can have it happen with demonic energy, or we create demons in our field that reiterate negative thoughts and negative beliefs in our mind, as if there's like an external force in our field that's telling us negative things. This is real. This happens. It's every single one of us experiences this to some level. Some of us are more sensitive to it than others. And we can have a field full of demons and parts of ourself that are in these really extreme roles, fragmented roles, or we can have a field of angels, of energies that support loving self, connection, harmony, authenticity, being present, having peace. And demons can literally turn into angels too. This is another thing that a lot of people don't understand. And it's important to know this stuff. I know that for a lot of people, this can be a little bit confusing, but the more conscious that you become as a person, the more you're going to realize that, yes, a lot of this stuff relates to your nervous system. A lot of this stuff relates to your mind. It relates to your brain and your chemical responses. It relates to your hormones. It relates to all of these different things. But it's also energetic. The true roots of all of this is your energy, okay? The energetic centers in the body. The subtle energy body itself that surrounds your body, basically like an egg around your system. There are conscious entities, energies that you create as a part of you that become self-fulfilling feedback loops of either positive energy or negative energy. The reason why this is valuable to understand is because when you're honoring your process in the ways that I've been talking about being in acceptance, non-attachment, feeling through things while being present, this creates more positive entities and positive energy in your system. It creates a lot more nervous system regulation and harmonization in your body and in your energetic field. This means that things that we can't logically even control or even think about through just the conscious awareness, we tap into the power of the unconscious realm, which is still a huge part of who we are, and plays the biggest role in what we're attracting and also what we're creating. So in other words, what I'm saying here is to become a real master of manifestation, it means you're becoming conscious of your unconscious, and the things that you're doing consciously are designed to support your unconscious awareness, which sounds kind of strange. A lot of people think I just have to be fully conscious and I have to control everything. But in truth, the true masters of manifestation are learning to use their conscious minds to set up proper foundations so that the unconscious can operate in more harmony and more synchronization. And then what does that do? What's happening inside of the system, physically and energetically, starts projecting outside of the system into our reality, into our life experience. Everything it is that we're observing is collapsing through the quantum field. It's turning things into waves. So when your nervous system is regulated and you have a unification between positive and negative energy in your system, and then you've co-created angelic positive energies in your subtle energy field, everything you're observing is collapsing into realities that fulfill your nervous system's resonance, that fulfills that positive energy that you've built up over time by being who you really are and by going through that process of loving yourself on a consistent basis. But this is not something you do overnight. This takes time to build this up. It is like a momentum, and it's kind of like building a snowball. You have to kind of roll the ball in the snow. And obviously, the more you roll that ball, the bigger it can get. But it's your choice. You have to choose this. And from the very start of this video, it's the unification of opposites. There's no longer a fear of negative experiences or negative energy. There's no longer a fear of the trauma that's in your system that's unresolved. Because now you know there's just as much beauty and value in that negative energy when you learn to accept it and get curious about it and be present with it through feeling it with acceptance. And that naturally harmonizes it into more of the positive, which is what you're truly wanting to experience. And as your nervous system starts to regulate and you start to find more of a unification between these energies in your system, what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to exist from a state of the middle pillar, which means you're no longer on the emotional roller coaster of super high highs and really low lows. You're existing as an observer. You're existing from a place of safety in your system. You feel safe, grounded in your body, grounded in your authentic self. Your inner child feels nurtured. It feels taken care of. And the way that manifests through your everyday interactions and your emotional state is there's a sense of neutrality. There's just a sense of being in the center. So you can really recognize and understand both sides. You're going to come across people that are stuck in negative energy and they think they're victims to life and they don't know that they're co-creating their experience. You're going to understand them from a place of compassion. You're going to come across people that are creating positive realities, that are doing the same type of work that you're doing and are finding ways to just better commit to who they really are and creating a very fulfilling life experience. And you're also going to understand them and have compassion for them because you understand they're doing the work. They're being themselves. You're not attached to either or. You just take it as it comes. And you have that state of neutrality to work with life. So when negative experiences manifest from a harmonized inner state, there's almost a little bit of an excitement for the adventure of that negative energy because you know that negative energy is going to help you further discover deeper layers of who you really are. It no longer becomes this burden or this thing of like, oh my gosh, not again, or not this, and oh, I hate this. It becomes a curiosity and an excitement to work with that negative, knowing it's not separate from the positive. And as you accept it and work with it, it harmonizes even more. And then you have a deeper access to your authenticity. This is what it means to live from the middle pillar. And then your entire life reorganizes itself from that state of inner regulation and harmonization. And that's when you create the life of your dreams. And it just becomes natural. It gets easier and easier to do it, and it expands more and more and more, the same way that a lot of us experience this in the negative. How many of you have, let's say, made decisions that you knew were not in your best interest, and you felt a little bit attached to it, a little bit addicted to it, and you just saw your life get worse and worse and worse and worse, almost as if it felt like you were just going to hell, right? It's kind of like watching your life wither away. You know you're making choices that are not good for you, but you're still doing them anyways. You're still hanging out with those people you shouldn't be hanging out with. You're still escaping your feelings, and you know you're doing it, and then you're watching your life progressively getting worse and worse and worse. You're losing your money, you're losing your home, you're losing your sense of safety within your body, you're losing a sense of stability, your mind starts getting even crazier, the negative thoughts amplify. I think a lot of us know what this feels like. This is a very common thing to experience in modern time today. Now imagine that negative momentum, but working in the positive, where your life progressively is getting better. It's progressively getting safer. Your finances are progressively expanding. Your sense of freedom is expanding in what it is that you get to do on a daily basis. The relationships that you're manifesting are healthier, are more meaningful, are more impactful. What it is that you're doing with purpose becomes clearer and clearer. The thoughts in your mind are no longer running, and if they do, they're actually telling you positive things about yourself. Not a lot of us consider the reality that positive and negative exist together. And whenever we're experiencing high levels of negative energy, there's also a reality where it could be the complete opposite, but it's a choice. So many of us identify with just what we've been used to, what's familiar, and we think there's nothing else outside of that. There's nothing else that I could experience that's more fulfilling in my life. This is all that life has to offer. I'm just going to accept it, and I'm going to stay in this addiction of a life I don't really want. And that's a choice. And what drives that choice? Unresolved trauma. So when we start working on that trauma, we start nurturing, taking care of, and being more present with our inner child. We start practicing non-attachment, practicing being an observer, practicing being in acceptance for what is, and feeling in the present moment. This is when we slowly start to harmonize and synchronize everything in the system, and that's where everything can change. Funny enough, as I'm talking about this subject today, I just happen to be wearing a flannel that has dark and light squares, positive and negative squares. Interesting. And that was completely intuitive. Didn't even plan that. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. If you're looking for a group of like-minded people that are doing this deeper work, honoring the inner world, being present with it, working with the authentic self, first link below, you can request to join. Second link is where you can book one-on-one calls or mentorships, and I would be honored to work with you in that deeper way. Third link is the Patreon. I have an entire trauma course from start to finish on everything you need to know to work on your foundation to start regulating your nervous system. Tier number 3 of the Patreon is a nervous system healing ritual that is literally happening tomorrow as of the recording of this video today. We are on the 28th of October. If you're going to be participating in this ritual for tomorrow, you have to sign up today. Today is the last day to sign up. Okay? a huge energetic catalyst, supports regulating the nervous system, surfaces the trapped energy in your body that needs to be processed. If you're someone that's committed to that, this is for you. Tier number 3, third link below. We'll leave it there. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of the day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Later.